गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट। गना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। आई वांट टू डू समथिंग डिफरेंट, बट देन यूएसए blockaded Venezuela, and well, so I had to do this. Something pretty important. Okay, let's get the fundamentals right before I move ahead. What's a blockade? In any analysis, uh, literature, whatever you call it, a blockade is an act of war. So in effect, USA has declared war on Venezuela. That's the first thing I must tell you. But this is something with a difference. It is some kind of a partial blockade. So it's a partial war. Will it go into something else? Well, there's a trajectory forming. There's a trajectory forming around this whole story. Whether US will end up in a shooting match, we don't know. But there's a clear trajectory. We'll identify the trajectory. Why that trajectory is forming? Why is USA doing all this? There are layers. And I'd like to also explain to you something about Venezuela and all, because people, that part of the world, we don't understand many of these things unless you go into it in a bit of a detail. So let's get the whole story going. Look, Mr. Trump has put a blockade, and this is what he has said. And I'll read it out because this is important. This is the crux of the whole story. He said Venezuela is completely surrounded by the largest armada ever assembled in the history of South America. It will only get bigger, and the shock to them will be nothing like they have seen before. Okay. Now comes the crux, which I put in that box. Until such time as they return to the United States of America, the oil, land, and other assets that they previously stole from us. The illegitimate Maduro regime is using oil from these stolen oil fields to finance themselves. So there is logic being put across. The logic that this land, this oil, everything belongs to USA. There's no evidence of that. There is no evidence to say that the oil in Venezuela belongs to USA. Yeah, USA, Chevron, and all those oil companies have helped Venezuela discover that oil. There's no doubt. They had very good contracts once upon a time. Yes. But that doesn't make that oil and assets part of the US assets. And it doesn't make Maduro or Venezuela stealing it. Right? I'll have to go into a little bit of detail to see what exactly happened then. I'm not very clear of it, but I went back till 60s. There's no evidence. It's like saying Iran. A lot of oil in Iran was developed by the British people and the Americans. Now to say all of Iran's oil is American, well, that's the logic. It's stretching it a little too far. Okay, so he says drug terrorism, human trafficking, murder, and kidnapping. For the theft of our assets and many other reasons, including terrorism, drug smuggling, and human trafficking. The Venezuelan regime has been designated a foreign terrorist organization. Okay, therefore, today I am ordering a total and complete blockade of all sanctioned oil tankers. So, this is the second crick to this. The second crick to this is only about sanctioned oil tankers, the dark fleet. Regular sales, you can continue. There's no stop. It's only for the sanctioned dark fleet. with virtually complete Venezuelan tanker fleet comes into that category. Okay. Then it talks of, you know, human trafficking, murder, and kidnapping. Murder, kidnapping is not something which that's internal to Venezuela. It's not something which for which you go to war. There's so much murder and kidnapping happening in Pakistan. We don't go to war for that. But then Trump has said so. He's put a blockade for that. Now, as far as drug is concerned, drugs, fentanyl doesn't go through Venezuela. It goes through somewhere else. There are other places in Central America from which fentanyl goes, including from Mexico. What goes out from Venezuela is cocaine. And not necessary to US, it also goes to Europe. It goes to many other places. So to say that Venezuela is a source of drugs and is a little and it is only directed at USA is a little stretching it too far. Okay. And so there is this haziness about this whole story because the whole story is not about that. Okay. The illegal aliens, yeah, there is a lot of trafficking, human trafficking from Venezuela into USA, illegal immigration. That is there. But for every country which does illegal immigration into USA doesn't go to war. So many countries do illegal. Even China, there's a lot of illegal immigration from China into USA. Okay. So, iffy. The whole story is a bit iffy. Okay. He says, we will not allow a hostile regime to take our oil, land, or any other assets. Here comes the crunch. He says, I'd want my oil. So here towards the end of this Trump blockade order, he is very clear, I want oil. Right? And which must be returned to United States immediately. What is not mentioned is the pressure which is being put on Nicolas Maduro to quit. So a regime change operation. So all the story should end at regime change. So layers. Layer number 1 is drugs trafficking. Layer number 2, oil. Layer number 3, regime change. But there's another layer behind all this. Get China off Latin America. So there are 4 layers in this Trump blockade. Political layers. Because ultimately everything starts from politics and ends with politics. Right? Okay. Let's get ahead. When did it start? When did this whole business start? Right? When did this whole business start about this? It started on 29th November. Going back. It started with Trump saying, he closed the airspace over Venezuela. Okay? So, it's not something with the blockade is only a thing. The funny part in international law, if ships surround you, there's a blockade. If someone tells you no air movement, it's not war. If someone says tomorrow USA tells I will close airspace over India, that's not war. But blockade is a war. Blockade is considered a war. So, well, he has done this now already. This is 18th day. No, there's no air activity over Venezuela. I saw this today in flight radar. Hardly 1 hour. This is thing whether they're flying over or this is of course Guyana. Will come to it. Hardly any air activity. So that's right part of the story. And then, right for the past 1 month, troops have been moved in that area, and all kinds of they say smuggling boats carrying illegal, I wouldn't say contraband also. What they've said is drugs have been shot down. So in this area, there have been about 10 strikes south of the Panama Canal or the Panama Isthmus, and about equally 10 to 12 strikes north. So both sides strikes have taken place. And this has raised its own queries and furor within USA. There's an admiral who's about to be sacked, or he's sacked. I'm not kept track of it fully. We also know that last week, 4 days, 5 days back, there was a vessel which was boarded. We saw this. I did this video on this, where US troops came, boarded skipper, which was part of the dark fleet. It was carrying oil from Venezuela to Cuba. And now the story is coming out that very little of oil would go into Cuba. Most of it was to go to China. So that's the route, dark fleet. And these people went and boarded it. And after that, 4 days later, 5 days later, now the blockade has come into play. So the trajectory is moving up. You've seen airspace closure. Seen actually 20 odd boats being shot down, and about 20, 30 people have died. No, more than that, in fact, have died in open seas. Okay. A vessel has been boarded. And fifth, naval blockade. And the last part of the story is a build-up. We'll cover that build-up also. So where are we going from here? That's the point. Okay. So this is the Venezuelan or South American, the northern coast of South American. This is the Panama Isthmus. Okay. And this is the Caribbean. Most of these countries in the Caribbean are okay with USA. Right? They're okay with USA. And they're, except of course, Cuba, Honduras, all these places where certain amount of left wing, I won't say extremism, socialism is there, and they were under communist influence. Cuba, of course, has always been anti-American ever since I can remember, from the days of Fidel Castro, more pro-Russian than Chinese, but now they're more with Chinese. Many of these smaller countries there and the Latin American countries have been penetrated by Chinese. It's a fact, right? So all this is happening there. Okay. Now, to give you a thing, Venezuela here, it borders Guyana to the east. In the west is Colombia, where there are a lot of drug cartels. Colombia is known for drugs. Okay. And Brazil to the south. Actually, to the south is the Amazon Valley. You see, if you see this is the Amazon River, right? So this is where it is, and here this dots which you see here are all the Caribbean islands, and Trinidad Tobago is the nearest one here, just 11 kilometers off the coast, and that's where a lot of buildup is taking place. Okay, now let's look at the buildup. This map, you will get the buildup, but I'll explain it to you here. Bigger one. Yeah, have a look at it fully. So there have been bombers, there have been cargo planes, that is logistics, and patrol planes and all. They've all come around Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico at one point of time was a US base. It's a huge US base. Now they've gone down, wound it down, but now they're putting it back up. Then of course there is US Virgin Islands, which is US territory. So they have space there also, but it's a very small island, hardly anything. But right around these two places, they have put a whole lot of things, and of course Trinidad Tobago, which is just here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, this is Trinidad Tobago. So around these places, they've built their destroyers, they've built bases, aircraft has come, and there's a tremendous demonstration of force around Venezuela. And Trump is right when he says Venezuela is completely blockaded. Not landward, maritime. Maritime blockade is complete. And well, how many? See, the tankers can't go. Small boats can still go, but even that would be difficult because America has down about 20 odd boats. It's not only to the north; it's also to the south. Even in the south of the Panama Isthmus, there are about 10 boats which have been knocked off. So, US has tightened the screws on Venezuela. It wants regime change. We'll get to the politics. You don't understand the politics, you're gone. And including Gerald Ford, which is their one of the premier aircraft carriers, it's loafing around that area. Okay. Uh, Look, Gerald Ford is bigger than the Empire State Building. So you can imagine 147 stories. That tall it is. So a lot of action. A lot of action is happening. And Gerald Ford, the aircraft carrier can take up to 90 aircraft. 90 aircraft is how many squadrons? 6 squadrons, about 5.5 squadrons, all kinds. So it's a packet. And for Venezuela, which has virtually nothing, it's completely outmatched. Plus the fact, apart from this aircraft carrier, in Puerto Rico, they brought heavy logistics in and the full build-up. So that is where the military build-up is. What is the focus? Oil. Let's be very clear. I mean, oil. That's there in the Trump blockade thing also. Oil is the focus of Trump's campaign against Maduro. Simple. Do regime change, get a favorable regime in, put it in, and renew trade between USA and Venezuela, and kick out China, kick out Russia. These are the two people who are favoring Maduro, and of course people like Cuba, and all. Those are part of the game, local. Okay. Now let's talk of Venezuela. Now Venezuela is it's a world leader as far as proven reserves of oil are concerned. It's got the maximum proven reserves of oil, and it's there. It's not touched. Okay. It's got a reserve of about 300 plus billion barrels of oil. It's 18% of the world total. And it's not tapped at all. It's mostly extra heavy crude. It is dense and requires a special type of refining. Okay, you can't refine it everywhere. It's not light crude. So, what is light crude? What is this thing? I've got a small clip. I will show it to you in the end. It'll clarify a lot of things. Why this whole story is happening. Okay, and of course, they're in this Orinoco belt and Maracaibo Basin, which is this more to the east of Venezuela. Right. The thing is, say 15, 20 years back, Venezuela became a major supplier of global oil. They got a lot of money. But then, with all that, they got Hugo Chavez. Hugo Chavez was a out and out leftist and a communist. He ran some unpopular, I wouldn't say unpopular, some wasteful social programs, like all communists do. As a result, and he fell foul of USA. As a result, oil production went down. All the money which they got from oil dissipated in the social programs. Nothing happened. And they went into double-digit inflation. This is the story of Venezuela. Because before we think that USA is the bad wolf around here, there's a bad Venezuela also. I mean, we were dealing with them. Even we went and dealt and took oil from them, incidentally. We're prepared to take oil. हमें क्या लेना है? Let bloody Venezuela be the way it is. But the fact is, Venezuela is been in a pretty poor shape from a long time and ruled by less than democratic means, rigged elections, something like Pakistan. But the guy who's come up politically there has not been a politician. I mean, he's not been a army guy. He's been a politician, but completely left of the wing. Hugo Chavez followed by Maduro. Maduro was Hugo Chavez's vice president. Hugo Chavez said thumbs, showed two thumbs to USA when he was alive, and he died because of cancer. If he had not died, I don't think Venezuela would have been any different under Hugo Chavez vis-a-vis Maduro. Both are the cut of the same cloth. So we shouldn't have any pity for Maduro. Also, let me be upfront about it. I have no pity for a guy like Maduro because he has, he's a communist at the heart, and I pity the Venezuelans. I have nothing for USA to do all this. I don't know whether all these Venezuelans will be better off with the US people. The fact is, these chaps have rigged elections through and through ever since I've read about Venezuela. Okay. Now, let's talk about a little bit about oil. Before you think, so much oil is coming from there, it's not coming. That's the first thing. Venezuela oil production only accounts for 1% of global output as of now, and that's been there for the past 10 years. And who buys Venezuelan oil today? All those who are not bothered about sanctions of USA, and they are mainly Chinese teapot refiners. US itself can take some oil from Venezuela, and we'll see why. And of course, Cuba. Okay. The heavy grade of oil which you get there, those refineries are there in Florida. Again, the Trump connection, you can't miss it. Okay. Lot of American refineries are geared for this heavy oil. It's a heavy, sludgy kind of a oil. It's not like a free flowing oil which you get, say, even in Big Boy or someplace. And of course, China couldn't care less whether it's sanctioned oil or not, because it takes from Iran, it takes from Venezuela, and everything it's got. And it has done a smart thing. It is taking oil from Russia, Iran, and Venezuela at the cheapest possible rates, because they can't sell it to anyone else. And there is something called Chinese teapot refiners. So some of these teapot refiners, I believe, have put up refineries in Venezuela. I've not got evidence of that, but that's what people say. But what are teapot refiners? This is it. They are independent and private refiners who operate outside China's state-owned system. China has CNPC and Sinopec, Sino Petroleum Corporation. Okay, Chinese National Petroleum Corporation. They are the ones who deal. Like they are like our, ONGC and Oil India and things like that. But there are others, small refiners. That's why they call teapot refiners, who are based in China, take crude from Venezuela. They're all in Shandong province. Why they're in Shandong province and all, don't ask me. But they're there. Okay. Now, this teapot refiners, they all get discounted oil, often sanctioned through dark fleets. And this oil comes from Russia, Venezuela, Iran, and such places through the dark fleet route. Untraceable. But China doesn't care. China might be giving cover to all these fellows. Right? And this these refiners, they call the teapot refiners, they give oil only for China. They're not sent out because dark fleet oil is cheap. So it comes in dark fleets, comes to China. There's a transfers which take place in open seas. Even tankers' names are changed and comes to China into the teapot refineries, refined and sold into the system. The Chinese government makes money on this. Okay, and it is about 20% of China's capacity. So this is at risk. These teapot refiners are at risk because if you sanction oil tankers or blockade against sanctioned oil, means no one will touch that oil. Rather, I will say not that anyone will touch that oil. Any tanker going, USA will say, where are you going? Everything verified. If not, they'll take it. We already taken the tanker somewhere to Florida. They'll refine it and use it. So there is the whole story comes on this thing. So now you're going to push China out of this equation. If there's a regime change, China is out of the equation here in Venezuela. So it's not only getting oil, you're also pushing China out. And if China is pushed out of Venezuela, see the ripple effect on other Latin American countries. Other Latin American countries, because there's already a struggle for Panama Canal. Panama Canal, when Trump took over, he said, I'll take over Panama Canal. Both ends of the Panama Canal, there are two ports, land ports, land come seaports, right? Where container transshipment terminals were operated by the Lakashing group of Hong Kong. And USA was forcing Lakashing to sell it off to Blackwater. I did a program on this in the beginning of the year. You can have a look at it. Right? But that deal didn't go through because China interfered, all that. In the meanwhile, the Panama Canal people, the Panama authorities stepped in. Marco Rubio went there, squeezed Panama's tail, everything. So while today China nominally still owns those ports either end of the canal, the control is with Panama, who is being controlled by USA. So to that extent, China has pushed USA has pushed China into a corner in Panama. Apart from that, in other places also, Salvador, all these places. And China, I won't say China, USA has already made it very clear. The new Trump strategy, it says hostile foreign countries in Latin America is no go anymore. So he's already given a notice out. So Venezuela action is not about oil alone. It is also about shutting China out. 1, 2, 3. First is the Panama Canal. Second is this. He's already pushed them out of Greenland. Canada is having huge second thoughts about doing anything with China. So all these three things, 4 things, he is achieving, Mr. Trump. Okay, let's talk of Venezuela itself and the politics, so that I put it in picture. Venezuela is one of the most urbanized countries in the world, or rather in Latin America. Of course, like I've said, it's got huge proven oil reserves. It also has coal, iron ore, bauxite, and gold. So minerals also there. And these days, Trump is going around for minerals. So why will he let it go? He will not. Okay. Now you go back in time, Hugo Chavez, which I spoke of, he fashioned himself as a champion of the poor and got into power. I mean, if I go into Venezuelan story before that, it's up and down. He virtually took to the streets and all that, and uh, got into power. The moment he got into power, he became anti-American, and he started dealing with China and even then with China and Russia, and all of Venezuela's oil fund money which he got, he put it in social programs, which failed, which miserably failed. The social programs were uh, actually conduits for cartels to siphon money out. So instead of giving the money from oil directly to the cartels, he actually lot of. I mean, that's a big story of its own. I'll not go there, but that failed. Those social thing failed, and people became rich, and there was a lot of misery in Venezuela. Inflation, double-digit inflation, everything, the works. But he was a populist chap. He continued. Okay. Then when Nicolas Maduro came in, by then everyone knew Venezuela has oil, but they can't take it out. They can't. They have to do this dark fleet business on only China, and China doesn't have the legs. One thing which is coming out in this is, does China have the military power to take on USA in this whole story? Sorry, it doesn't have. So Venezuela, as far as the economy and all is concerned, is in near collapse, and Maduro has not been good. There's been rampant inflation, shortages of daily necessity, unemployment, crime, and they say that about 7 million Venezuelans have fled the country. Not a small amount, huge. Now, Maduro has been in power since 2013. Okay. Before that, 15 years, Hugo Chavez. So, over about 28 years now, Venezuela, uh, despite having everything, is in a bad shape. That's the interesting part. Okay. Maduro, when he came in 2013, was not great. Uh, 2018, there was the election held. That election was 50-50. No one knew who won. But Maduro declared himself as victor. His opponent, opposition leader Juan Guaido, right? The Americans backed him and said he is the victor. But no one bothered. Venezuela, Maduro continued. Then again, 2024, there was an election in which it was very well known, clear. Even UN said so. Everyone said so that elections were rigged, and he was supposed to have lost. He jailed the opposition leader. That fellow barely got out. He's Edmundo Gonzalez, and he ran off to Spain. He's now sitting in Spain. All international observers, UN observers, everyone said Maduro lost. Something like Pakistan. So Venezuela is like Pakistan. In some manner, it is like Pakistan. Okay. People in EU and USA and all have refused to accept Maduro as the winner. But then data has not been released. He said, look, all of them, including UN agencies, said release the data results of the election. He never released it. But he's got backing of Russia, China, and Iran. So Venezuela is the Latin American, crink partner. This Maria Corina Machado, who won the Nobel Prize, is now the opposition leader in Venezuela. So this is again a move by the Western society. Usko Nobel Prize de do, khada kar do, make her a big figure, and then she talks for Trump. She talks for Trump. She talks for USA and all that. So there's a political game also going on. And this is typical Latin American. You see many of these countries, Haiti, all those, Cuba itself, Honduras, El Salvador. All these countries have had this past. Prosperous nations went to seed because of communism. And what's more, the complication thing which we'll see whether I don't know whether it will happen or not. Have a look. This is Venezuela. This is Guyana. Now, Venezuela claims this red part as its own in Guyana. Guyana is its neighbor. Why? In this area, in the red area, Essequibo, there is more oil there than what is there in Venezuela underneath. At least that's what people say. So Venezuela wants to invade Guyana. And this is a hot topic about 6-7 months back. But it's not gone off the radar. So America is also worried that Venezuela, if it goes and with China's help and Russia's help, captures Guyana, and then the Caribbean will fall. So there's a larger game going on there. I just thought I'll put across all these issues to you. And of course, the moment this whole story has happened, oil prices have spiked. You'll see headlines, oil prices have spiked by 1% and all that. It makes no difference. You look at this. This is the graph of two, WTI crude and Brent. Okay. Both are at still one of the lowest in the past 10 years. Of course, this is only for 1 month. This spike which you see at the end is what it has gone up today by 1.5%. Even then, crude is less than $50 a barrel. So, oil is an issue and a non-issue. Regime change is the issue, and that's everything else is behind that. China is the issue. Trump definitely wants China out of this area. Now you will say, look, China, Trump is doing everything illegal. Well, that's the fact. He's doing. Now he's doing something with China. Look, there's another angle. Trump is able to do all this. Can China do this in Taiwan? It can't. So when people say American power has gone down and all, now where is this going to go? That's the more interesting part. Where is this whole story going to go? Right? Where is this whole story going to go? And why has this come about? Oil. So I'll show you a small clip. Have a look at it. Very interesting clip, and you'll understand. It's a clip of 6 minutes. I'll show you about 3-4 minutes. You'll understand the oil angle of this whole story very clearly. Yeah.
Now, Donald Trump is insisting that the main reason he's interested in Venezuela, the main reason the US is kind of looking at tankers off the coast of Venezuela comes back to drugs, the trade, the smuggling of illegal drugs out of Venezuela. But what if it's not just that? Maybe there's something else going on. What if it's partly about oil? Now, on the surface, you might be thinking, why does America even need Venezuelan oil? And I can kind of understand your point, because if you look at just total oil production, look, this is up until 2005, the US was there, Venezuela was there, Saudi Arabia was there. But as you probably know, since then, everything has changed. Look, American output has gone through the roof, way above Saudi Arabia. And Venezuela has gone basically to the floor. And that's kind of post-Chavez, Maduro. They're one of the minnows now, I think 21st biggest producer in the world. So again, that question, why should America care? Well, in the US, that big rise is largely down to this. It's down to the shale revolution. So you've got fracking all around the US producing extraordinary amounts of crude oil. And here's where we get to the interesting bit. Because when you're thinking about crude oil, maybe you're just thinking about, well, look, barrels of oil. It's all the same, isn't it? Well, actually, no. So if you kind of look at crude oil, there are various different types of crude in different parts of the world. there's actually kind of various different ways you can categorize it. But one way you can look at it is look at the kind of density. So you're basically looking at how thick that crude is. And when I say thick, I mean literally how thick. This is showing you global production broken down by the density of that oil. And so you've got the kind of medium stuff. And this is probably, if you've got kind of image in your mind of what crude oil looks like, it's a bit like this, you know, it's kind of black, but it's not too viscous, it flows around. But there's other stuff as well. So this is light crude. And it kind of almost looks like a smoothie, doesn't it? And that's the same stuff. This is still crude oil, but down to the kind of geological and the biological conditions in the ground when it was being formed, you know, hundreds of millions of years ago, it comes out looking a bit different. And so that's light. You've also got heavy stuff. And it's kind of relatively small in global production, but this is gloopy, super viscous stuff, heavy oil. So heavy, medium, light. Remember that. And remember also the key thing here is you get it out of the ground, it may look like that, but ultimately you still need it to go into, you know, someone's car, or indeed, you know, be turned into chemicals. Basically, you need to process it. And that processing, that happens in places like this, in refineries. And there are refineries all over the world, of course. There are refineries all over the US as well. There's kind of more than 100 of them. And if we kind of look at where those refineries are, well, so there's some in California. So the history in America, actually, historically, a lot of the early Californian oil, that was the heavy, gloopy stuff. And if you look at kind of some of the refineries in America, so here are some of the refineries. There's one in LA there. These are the 10 biggest. You've got some up here around kind of towards Canada. That we'll kind of come to that in a second. But a lot of them are down there, kind of Texas, Louisiana, on the coast. And here's the critical thing. These refineries are primarily set up for heavy oil, for taking that gloopy stuff and turning it into gasoline and all of the other different products. But here's where things get interesting. And remember that chart I showed you a moment ago, the one which showed kind of shale oil and how it kind of went through the roof? The oil that's generally produced with shale oil, the fracking oil, that comes out of the ground mostly in the light form. So it's the smoothie. It's sometimes actually even clear. It comes out of the ground clear rather than black. And that's the majority of American production right now. Shale oil tends to be light stuff. And actually that's kind of going back 10 years. Look at where we are now. Look at those bars. In the last few years, the amount of light oil being produced in the US has gone up and up and up, and the amount of kind of heavy stuff has gone down. But back to those refineries. They need to be fed. If America's going to have gasoline, it needs to feed those refineries with heavy oil.
Yeah, that's the story, isn't it? If America needs gasoline, all these refineries need to be fed with heavy oil, and that has to come from Venezuela and wherever. So, and you know, if you look at the shale oil is light oil. Why? Because you pump water and you pump a chemical. Earlier, you know, these guarfali in Rajasthan. Guarfali in Rajasthan used to be used as a coagulant for the shale oil. Guarfali is like beans. That it is special beans. That used to be mixed with oil, pumped into the ground under pressure, and the shale in shale area where there's shale rocks. Shale is light formation of thing with oil in between. It used to be pumped back, so it comes out like that smoothie. What the chap was saying. That those refineries are completely different. Okay, the old refineries of USA, in whether it's in Texas or in Louisiana or in Florida, or for that matter in California, are all heavy oil. And that heavy oil will come from where? Venezuela. So there's a heavy oil lobby functioning. All those refineries will go out of this thing. Of course, they are getting heavy oil from wherever else. They also have a heavy oil within USA. But on a longer axis, they need heavy oil from Venezuela. So this is the story. Where is it going to go? How can it happen? So if you want Venezuelan oil to go into USA, Maduro has to be taken out. And if you want to own Latin America and ensure that China has kicked out, Maduro has to go out. So if Maduro goes out, then you see what's happening in Panama earlier, that's half finished. And then things will change. there'll be a domino effect. That's the hope. So this is the broad plan of Trump. Will he succeed? We don't know. Look, if you want Maduro to go, you have to do some kinetic action. Yeah, you cut out oil and you do all these things, the people will, suffer. If people suffer, they might go with Maduro and not with Trump. See, one of the things with people suffering, like India, when in India in '71, when the Seventh Fleet came, people said, "No, we'll face it." So, so that's why probably they gave that Macado lady, the Nobel Prize and all those. So there are a lot of things happening. Is this the end? No, this is only the beginning. Let's आगे देखते हैं क्या क्या होगा. ये तो ट्रेलर है, पिक्चर तो अभी बाकी है. So if you think I'm not giving you anything, I don't know what's going to be next. If they might have to do something, there might be an assassination attempt. They might trigger street brawls, protests. Uh, there will be a mix of the gray zone and all this. So let's see where this is going. What is India's take on it? Zero. Just sit and watch. Whichever way the dice rolls might be good for us. Might be good. At this point of time, I can't make out. I'll be very honest with you. We'll see how things go and then make an assessment. What is it there for it in India? Right. That's all I have to say today evening. Others can talk what they want. Like someone has said, three of you, India geopolitics are streaming at the same time. Well, it's their thing. You know me. I have to do geopolitics most of the time. I do that only. And I'm sure others are doing. Well, all the best. You can choose what you want. Or see each at a separate time. Right? I've given you my way of looking at it. I'm not going to judge whether USA is correct or Venezuela is correct. From my side, both are in a bad shape. Both, I mean, there's no love loss with both. So let's be transactional and see what the outcomes are and which way it goes. The only outcome I seek from this is China should get out of that area. Yeah, मेरा सोच इतना ही है. ठीक है, China should get out of that area. Yeah, and we get oil from Venezuela. Reopen that channel. If that will happen only if US gets into the deal. So we'll see how this whole story goes further. Okay. With this, if you like this video, do press the like button. And if I request subscribe to Gunner Shot, support Gunner Shot, become a member. As also, if you subscribe to Gunner Shot, press the bell icon so that more people come in. I'll take some questions on now. Is it true to say USA against China than Venezuela with an eye on? Yeah, I explained the whole story to you. It's all the above. It's against China. It's a regime change, consolidation of Latin America, cheap oil, everything. Akash, good evening. How are you? And Balram Krishnan, also good evening. Akash again. Ladybird Haru, good evening. Ashok Vardhan, good evening and namaskaram. Yeah, USA has reshuffled its command military system. We'll wait. There's no hurry. They say so far nothing has come out in black and white. So far it is only initial talk about this. We'll wait. When it comes finally, I'll analyze it. Yash says, hello, same to you. Japan attacked Pearl Harbor because US blockaded their fuel supplies. I agree with you, but who'll attack America today? Neither China nor Russia have the legs to do so. Yeah, history repeating itself. Let's see where we go. I mean, at this point of time, we don't know. Okay. Yeah, Kaushik, Jai Hind. This is essentially high sea piracy. Not fully. Let me tell you. You see, if you look at it only from one angle of what USA is doing, yes. But you look at it, what's happened to Venezuela itself. Okay, 25 years. Gunboat diplomacy, well, that's how it is. Yeah, Europe has made US lose face in front of Putin by selling cheap refined oil by Indian and Chinese, left with no alternative. What possible? Or, I mean, you can give a lot of explanations. Uh, yeah, Republic World has come out with a new geopolitical video analysis. It's worth watching. Well, what do they say? Let me see. Okay. Namaste and thanks a lot for your view. Right. Har Har Mahadev, A.G. Dogra. Hmm. Nobel Prize. Yeah. Forget Nobel Prize. Yeah, usko to paisa chahiye. As simple as that. Right. Thanks a lot, Ashish, for your contribution. And then, okay, let me see. Dograji, yeah, forget about Muslims for this because this has got nothing to do with it. I thought, it's somewhere else, so we'll talk of that. Pakistan, we'll talk of Pakistan tomorrow, day after. What's the hurry? Uh, Oil fields, where are these typically found? Are these regions where it is more probable? I don't know. I have to study this. I must be very honest with you. Where oil fields are there and where they are not there. Generally, you see they are along the tropics. But that's also not right because you have oil in Greenland, you have oil in the North Sea, north of Britain, absolutely cold area. So there's no logic to where you can find it. Now someone is saying we'll finding it in Andaman Nicobar. How they control it after exploring and finding it? Oh, it's actual physical control. You physically control it with your army and navy and air force. Or not army, navy and air force do a lot of patrolling of Bombay High. Yeah, good morning, Vasu. How are you? And Hans also. Good morning. Good evening. Oil fields of Venezuela are made for American oil refineries, and ironically, American oil is not good for American refineries. No, it's not so. The original oil which they have actually kept those are this same type of oil. The fracking oil is different. Okay. Trump is better than my Mr. Bean, and hence his push for Venezuelan oil. Well, that's the way it is. I'm half correct. Fine, you're forgetting the Yakuza. The Yakuza are the Japanese guys. Okay. I Yeah, dark fleets, they transport gas, oil, nuclear equipment, everything. Whatever is, smuggling. It's international smuggling, dark fleets. Yeah. BlackRock is the US deep state for all, maybe. Look, uh, don't leave anything out of this in this bigger game. All these are part of the story. US will do what's necessary to stay number one. Yeah, if I were USA, I would do it. Pakistan, maybe tomorrow we'll talk of Pakistan. Yeah, Pakistan is in a bit of a spot. We'll talk of it tomorrow. Venezuela was being a dick country since Chavez was installed. I agree with you. The Venezuelans have paid hell of a lot for the past 25 years with Chavez and Maduro. So that part of me says Trump should succeed. But even if Trump succeeds, who's the guy who's going to be put there? Even if Maduro is taken out, we don't know. So If I am on anyone's side, I'm on the side of the Venezuelans. I hope they get some solace after all this. Yeah, Nobel Prize for Maria Corina Machado was also one of the layers. I agree with you. I said that also. Yeah, Indian refineries are made for both kinds of oil. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, thanks for the excellent presentation. Yes. Hmm. Heavy versus light oil. What's the trade off as far as nothing? What you get after refining is all the same. Uh, Generally, certain byproducts differ between each oil, and that's about all. My guess, and I'm guessing now, that heavy oil gives you more byproducts. The the Middle East oil is that in between medium variety. Yeah, thoroughly enjoying the talk and Q&A. Thank you. Thanks for the podcast. Funny caricature. Hope Yankee can hit the bull. I hope so. Let's see what happens. That's the funny part. Yeah, I agree with you. Okay. Uh, right. Yeah. Prashtere, thanks for becoming a YouTube member. Right. And then let me see who else. How will it impact global oil price if Venezuelan oil, Iran oil is opened up? It'll go down, which is good for us. As it is today, despite the spike, it has gone down. It's not crossed $60 a barrel. Just think, we were buying oil at $148 a barrel, and that was when our economy was just 1 trillion. Oh, we have come a long way. Don't worry. Watch General Kandare's discussion, hard truths, interesting discussion, especially about needing new love and new systems. Yeah, I'll get him over and we'll talk. He's a good friend of mine. I've not had time to get many people over because of the fact that I was, where I was. And this week I thought I'll get a grip on myself, get into the swing of doing things, get into this. Because 10 days, if you're not in touch with what's happening, you lose track. Now I'm slowly getting, maybe by the end of this week, why am I doing all these solos? It forces me to read and come and talk about something else. And it gets my memories back. So next week onwards, I'll get people who'll talk. From my Nigeria, sir, much respect. Social media has made it possible to be up close with the retired general in such a prestigious military. Thank you. Thanks a lot for joining in all the way from Nigeria. I'm honored. I'm honored, right? I do hope you find that the way we go about doing things is pretty logical. I have fond memories of Nigeria because I had an officer from Nigeria who was doing the National Defense College with me, and I had a student from Nigeria when I was in the School of Artillery. Right? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Noriga, Saddam, Gaddafi all played into the hands of West because of their arrogance. Maduro won't survive. I also agree with you. I agree with you that he won't survive. But will whatever next be good for the Venezuelans? That's the point. Yeah, sir, I learned more about crude oil in this show than I learned in my IC engine class. Thank you so much. Oh, great. Yeah. Thank you, General Shankar. Very informative session. Could you do a session on the rupee value and its impact on the economy? Nothing, zero. I've explained it in the morning. There'll be no problem. The rupee value can go up and down, it will get stabilized itself. The RBI has not interfered in the rupee value. It's let the market forces take over. Good. Just don't worry. Kanglu is creating a lot of trouble for us. I don't think so. That's you see what you see on social media is excerpts of here and there. We also have realized that they have very little leeway with us. What's the difference between state-sponsored terrorism and foreign terrorist organization, which gives more legal authority for kinetic action? Who decides this? Well, that's decided by the guy who says so. We call Pakistan a state-sponsored terrorism. Trump has called Venezuela as a foreign terrorist organization. That's about all. It's a way of how you put it across. Is this Venezuela thing driven by Trump? But the D state, if Trump goes, will this? Trump will not go. But and you see, this is an American requirement. There's a huge oil lobby. You look at it, about 10 refineries which are depend on crude of this variety. Why will they not push? And those chaps would be having contacts in Venezuela. They'll stir up trouble. They've done. Look, this is an elaborate plan which has come into place. And plus, of course, uh, remember they want to kick China out of that place. So there are a lot of things happening. There are many layers in this Venezuelan episode. That's what I wanted to put across. I hope that you have understood. So don't look at this Venezuelan episode through one dimension. It's a multi-dimensional problem. Okay, right. I think we've had a great session. I must thank all of you for having joined. Yeah, morning I heard the news of RBI's intervention to stabilize the fall of rupee. I don't think they've done that. They'll let it stabilize. It'll stabilize on its own. Don't worry. Right. Well, yeah, you're confident about India's rise where LOP is scrapping it out in Germany. Yeah, leave him out. Usko kya, let him be what he does. He can do what he wants. He can talk. He's the leader of opposition. I don't know whether he understands India also, or that's on a personal wicket. But he's a leader of opposition. I'll respect him. Okay, he might be crapping it out in Germany, but I'll still respect him. Democracy hai, Fauj hai. Okay, but I'm very clear where India is going, and India is beyond leader of opposition and prime minister. India is about us, people, people's power. So we are talking of people's power. Okay, that's all for the day. Thanks a lot. Have a great time. We'll be back in the morning. Most probably, I'll see what I can talk of Pakistan because Pakistan is entering a different thing. Yeah, and we'll talk of it in the morning, and I'll see if there's anything. And I'll talk about 2-3 things in the morning. Small things. With this, have a great time. Jai Hind and good night to all of you.